start the bridge there, I'm sorry. And your trust his word. And if you're able to stand, let's stand as we sing this, and then we'll have Pastor come.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sherry, for playing.
Guess that's dead. Team meeting this afternoon right after the service. Coming up, you've got Rise Up. Keep that in mind. Again, if you're planning on going, get that registration in. CCA's Escape Room Fundraiser, Saturday. And Becca, tell us a little bit about how does that work? You just stand up so they can see you and hear you.
It's to support CCA. And we'll have
What's the time again?
I think it's 9 to 5.
Okay. They're kind of through the day. You sign up for a spot. So if anybody's going down to Rise Up and you want to do this, then you got to sign up for a later spot. So just kind of keep that in mind as you look ahead. It's a neat opportunity that we were able to host for helping CCA, basically. So let's see. Most of the stuff you've got in there, again, the sportsman's dinner, something that is new. We're trying and we would like to make it a local outreach, so I encourage if you know folk from our area that love to hunt and fish, invite them to come. And again, it's not just men. We have a few ladies that like to hunt or fish or both. And so know that you're welcome to come. It's not something that's just men. There's going to be menu of items. One of the things that we are going to need is some wild game kind of dishes. So I already know that we've got some goose offered, some venison, but there's a lot of different things we can do on top of that. We'll have some main regular dishes, I guess you'd say, as well. So if you know anything on that, you yourself maybe want to fix something or whatever, just let me know, and I can kind of coordinate that part of it, the wild game dish part of it anyways. We already have 2 workshops lined up and looking forward to that. I think it's going to be exciting. Out there in the foyer, you'll see baby bottles. Again, we got a late start, and it's typically, they like it to be done by the end of February. So if you want to give towards that, just, again, we're 2 more weeks, basically, so, no? It is, isn't it?
So next Sunday.
That's right, okay. Wow. Okay. All right, so we'll see what we can do, but if you can get that in, then we can stay on their schedule. That'd be good. They'll take them anytime. It's helpful if they're doing it all at once. All right, we are looking at doing a Singspiration the last Sunday of March. It's not going to be the widespread, every church come necessarily. We know 2 churches already have Palm Sunday things they're doing. Since he's doing a cantata that evening, Peruville is doing a cantata the next week, so they'll be practicing. So at least 2 churches I know of have specific things, but others don't. So what we talked about a little bit this afternoon is just keeping with our schedule and just putting something out to the churches saying, hey, if you'd like to join us, we're going to do a Singspiration that's obviously Easter themed, and it'll start at 2. And so we'll just kind of make it that kind of opportunity. We'll see who can join us, who can't. Again, some of the churches are already busy, some won't be. So we're gonna do that. Doesn't give us a lot of time to come up with a couple specials, but we'd like to have some. So if you are interested in that, I can see our music committee coordinator. Where is she? Back there, Affy. And we'll see what we can do on that line. Okay. All right. Any questions on the announcements and stuff? All right. Let's pray. Dive in. Father, thank you so much for who you are. Thank you again, Father, for our church. Thank you, Father, that we have business to attend to. We have events that we can do. We have just opportunities to fellowship. Father, to build relationships, not with just the intent of having more friends, but the intent of being a friend that encourages one another to live for Christ. And Father, I pray that you'd help us to do just that. And Lord, may some of these fun things we do be instruments that you use to kind of tie those relationships together. We do pray for the sportsman end of it, something new that we're trying, and we ask for wisdom and direction there, and perhaps even being able to reach out to some folk right here in our community. We just pray, Lord, that you would direct in that. Lord, I pray for those who are not feeling well. I know there's a few today that weren't here because they're sick. I know Boaz and Aaron, and I think there were some others as well. There are some that heading home partly because of that. I pray, Lord, that you would direct. And again, we pray for good health. And Lord, it's a little early to pray for spring, but we are looking forward to it. And Father, we do thank you again for what you have in store for us even right now. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, Revelation 7. As you go through Revelation again, you realize chapter 1, the intro, kind of looking at the things that were, talking about that. Then you get to chapter 2 and 3, and you have the churches, the things that are. From chapter 4 on, it's the things which will be, all right? And so chapter 4 and 5 kind of give us that throne room view, and we have God on his throne, we have the Lamb, we have the elders, we have the living creatures all surrounding the throne. And then we had the Lamb taking the throne, taking the scroll from God, from the throne, and then he is the one worthy of opening. Chapter 6, the scroll is opened, and we get into the seal judgments. All right? So we went through chapter 6 last time, and if you remember, when it ended, we were only on the 6th seal. The 7th seal actually picks up in chapter 8. So, and that's again the opening of the trumpets, and then the 7th trumpet opens up the 7 bowl judgments, so on. So if you want to think of a rough time frame, then think of the seals kind of working through the first half of the tribulation, and then opening up to the second half, you get a quicker, more intensive group of judgments out of the trumpets, then out of the bowl judgments, the worst of them all. And it's the impact is continuing even from the seals, then from the trumpets into the bowls. So there's a continuous flow of impact from these judgments, and they are judgments. And some of them affect everybody, some of them affect individuals, certain individuals, so on. So we're getting into the seals. We've done 6 of them, and right now we're at chapter 7, and it's an interlude. It's a parenthesis, all right? And it's sort of a view to some things that are a little bit later, but again, it's something where the timing between chapter 6 and chapter 7, chapter 6 and chapter 8, the seals, seal 6 and seal 7, the timing seems to fit, and it helps things flow a little more understandably. At least that's the idea behind this. All right, Revelation 7. After these things, now he's talking about those, the vision of the seal judgments so far. After these things, I saw 4 angels standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth or the sea or on any tree. All right, what do you see there? Just make some observations. Nature is? Okay, controlled by the divine. Four angels standing. That's what observations. We're picking it out. 4 angels standing. What are they controlling? Wind. And from the 4 corners of the earth. So what does that mean? Flat earth, right? What does it mean?
Direction.
Every direction. That's all it is. And yet there's some that, I don't know, they just go off on this. But when you look at a literal normal interpretation says, I'm going to read this, I'm going to take it for what it is, what it says, unless there's something in the context that tells me it needs to be something else. So we have these four angels, and they're at the four corners of the earth holding back the wind. All right, that's where our setting starts. Some people want to, well, these four angels are special, they got to be this, got to be that. There's nothing in the context to tell us that. Keep going. Verse 2. Then I saw another angel ascending from the east, having the seal of the living God. So now we're looking at, okay, is this part of the sealed judgments, because that's what we just read, or is this a little bit different? And we're going to see it come to play in a moment. Who is this angel? We don't know. We're not told. Again, some want to make it Christ for some reason. And I think it's because they talk about the seal as of the living God, seal of the living God. Well, that's Jesus Christ. He's really God, and so on. Or could it just be an angel who has the seal of the living God with him? Wow, it could actually just be that. Why? Because of what's coming. Notice what it says here. And he cried with a loud voice to the four angels, to whom it was granted to harm the earth and the sea, saying, do not harm the earth, the sea, or the trees till we have sealed the servants of our God on their foreheads. So what does he have? The seal of the living God is a big stamp. And he goes up and pop, right there in the foreheads all the way around. People have tried to do funny things with this. I really believe there was something placed on their forehead, a mark, that was very, very clear. This is from God. I don't know what it is. All we know is it's the seal of the living God. And this angel has this and is then able to seal 144,000 Jews. But what else do you notice then about the timing? Say it again. Okay. So this is at least before the seals continue. We have the seven seals still to open up. It's at least before that. All right? This interlude, some would say, well, maybe it's before any of the seals. Some believe it's probably more so, you'll see a description later that kind of hints towards the idea that it's begun, but it's not, they're not going to, the 144,000 aren't going to be impacted by what's coming. All right? He says here, verse 4, and I heard the number of those who were sealed, 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel were sealed. So what does that make you think of? 144,000. Jehovah's Witnesses. They claim that they're part of the 144,000. Actually, they now claim that the 144,000 isn't a literal number. It far exceeds that, and so on, because by now there's got to be 144,000 who have somehow earned the right to be part of this group. That's their part of their teaching. The 144,000 here are all Jews. Okay? That's not so with the Jehovah's Witnesses. But the 144,000 here are all Jews. Literally, as you look down through there, it says, of all the tribes of the children of Israel were sealed. Of the tribe of Judah, 12,000. Tribe of Reuben, 12,000. Gad, Asher, so on, 12,000. Notice, Judah, Reuben, Gad, Asher, Naphtali, Manasseh, Simeon, Levi, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, Benjamin. What's wrong with this list? What? Where's Ephraim? Oh, there's another one missing. Dan is not there. And so commentators have had a field day with this because we don't know why. But here's something interesting. I kind of at first was leaning towards one of them, and they said, well, Dan was one of the first tribe to go into idolatry. All right, they set up the golden calves and so on and so on. So it's like, maybe that's why. Again, not definite, maybe that's why. I thought, well, that could be. But here's something interesting. Ezekiel 48 gives the layout of the tribes in the millennial kingdom. And guess who's back? Dan. And guess who's not there? Joseph. But who else is back? Ephraim. And so Ezekiel 48 is describing the millennial kingdom and how it's going to be laid out. The 48 is about the city, the layout of the tribes, not just the city. And they go literally north to south. Guess I made it too tight. Here, I'll put it up there. How's that? Okay. North to south, kind of going across so that all of the tribes, they said except for two, and I can't remember now which two, I think it's the last two listed, but I'm not positive, don't have access to the Mediterranean Sea. But they're literally going to be laid out, and then right in the middle is going to be Judah, and in the middle of Judah is Jerusalem, and all around Jerusalem will be the Levites. And so instead of the priests being spread all over the whole kingdom in various cities, they're all going to be centered around Jerusalem. So that's some different things that come out of that Ezekiel passage. So, okay. So with this one, it's not because they go north to south, but it is around the temple or the tabernacle, in this case around the temple, is going to be all the Levites, and Judah is going to be all around it. So it is different even in that, from that layout. Ezekiel, again, that passage is giving you the layout of during the millennial kingdom. It's really interesting. They mentioned that all around Jerusalem, besides the Levites, they call this the kingdom of the prince. And so and remember, from the temple, what flows out of the temple? A river that heals. I didn't hear anybody say it. I just saw a nod from Isaiah. So somebody must have said it, I guess. But when you think about how all of this is laid out and set up, if that adds anything to our list, missing these two, it is at least that they haven't been kicked out for good or anything like that. For some reason, Joseph was put in instead of Ephraim, and for some reason, Levi is put in place of Dan. The Levites, again, aren't given a whole section like all the tribes are, but they're given land around Jerusalem in the millennial kingdom, all right? Now, do I have a great answer then for why they didn't include them? No, I don't. They speculate. There's different ideas. Again, I don't know. Probably the one that grabs me the most is the idea that the author is trying to highlight, if you think about Levi or the priests, and you think about Joseph, what's different about them? There is a focus of following, serving God. Joseph did that far and above his brothers. They gradually changed course. They gradually became men that you could respect, but boy, they weren't at first. But Joseph was. The priests, though there were exceptions over time, for the most part, they were trying to stay faithful to God and following him. Now, that's just a Rofian explanation. I have no idea how true that's going to be. There may be something far more settled. I actually read 4 or 5 different commentaries trying to get their perspective, and it's from they don't say anything to why, or to the idea of the idolatry, to who knows. So now continuing, you've got them set aside. They're sealed. What does this seal look like? We mentioned it's going to be on their forehead, but it's also going to be in contrast to something. What else is going to happen during the tribulation that this would be a direct contrast. Mark of the beast. So as I mentioned, I lean towards the fairly traditional understanding that probably the seals are especially involved in the first half of the tribulation. Whether it's the whole time or what, I don't know, but that seems to be the kind of the leaning. And then, at the half point of the tribulation, you've got Antichrist, who's made the covenant with Israel at the beginning, so they're pretty safe as far as attacks and things like that. They're pretty safe during that first 3.5 years. Where there's cosmic disturbances, that kind of stuff, that's going to affect them. But once you get to the midway part, now you have the Antichrist breaking the treaty, the covenant that he made with Jerusalem. He comes out in full force as, I am the God you're going to worship now. And he begins a war on all other religions. Some believe that's really why Babylon, a little later, gets destroyed. That because they have fostered their own religion as well as economic, I don't know what you want to call it, but empire almost. So we find that at this point, he begins to, in essence, make war on Israel at the behest of who? The great dragon, who has, at this point, by this time, thrown out of heaven. He is literally making war against Israel. So this is the time frame we're looking at. We're probably just before all that starting to really fly here, okay? They're sealed. It's something that's visible. It's on the forehead. Everybody knows these guys are from God, okay? Will that affect Satan and his demons? Personally, yeah, I think it will. Because I think they'll know this seal, this is of God. We're not going to be able to do anything to them. So it's almost like you see the seal and you just keep walking. And you find somebody else to harass. It's kind of that idea. With the seal, you have identity and you have protection. The protection is a little implied by what we're reading through, but we do know that they are not pictured with the martyrs in the end of the chapter here. They are pictured as being with Christ in Revelation 14, full-bodied, they survive. So it seems that part of this seal is a protection that sets them apart. Now here's another question. Why? Why seal them? Okay, this is so obvious that I think that's part of it. This is so clear, literally right on the forehead. When somebody sees you, it's like, yep, sees them, yep, they are a servant of God. They have been sealed. They see other people that are following Christ now. They don't have that seal. Think about this for a minute. No, we'll come to that. We'll come to that in a moment, the martyrs. We'll get to the kind of the contrast. Purpose. Look at Revelation 14 for a minute. Other than the word and what it means, witnesses, you don't read anything that specifically says they were actually witnessing. I believe they were. And matter of fact, that seems to be fairly traditionally held. Though at least one of the sources that I was reading was kind of like maybe their witnessing was more out of what we find in Revelation 14. Could be. I personally think that, do you remember in Matthew 24 when we were looking? There's a point during the tribulation where it is said that the whole world hears the gospel. I believe the 144,000 are a crucial part of that because they are going to spread out, and I believe they're going to be speaking of Christ. Obviously, you also have the two witnesses that come down and are miraculous, supernatural, and they're going to be speaking of Christ as well. So you've got a double effect there. Now, 14. Let's see. Let's have a reader. Do this, read 1 and 2 first. 1 and 2, 14. We'll do that. We've got a mic coming, so. Jonah, right up here to Mrs. Rofe. Yeah, 1 and 2 to start with, yep.
Then I looked, and behold, a Lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written on their foreheads. And I heard a voice from heaven like the voice of many waters, and like the voice of loud thunder. And I heard the sound of harpists playing their harps.
Now again, this is a picture that's a vision that's being given to John. The vision, Revelation 14, is now a picture of something after the tribulation, because he's talking about them standing with the Lamb, Messiah, Christ, on where? Mount Zion. Okay? Now, who will read, let's see, 3 through 5? 3 through 5, who will do that? Second reader? Got to make sure you're all awake. Steve, Mr. Coles. All I think is your dad when I say that.
And they sung as it were a new song before the throne and before the four beasts and the elders. And no man could learn that song but the 144,000 which were redeemed from the earth.
Hold on a second. So did you catch that? There's something, again, that's unique. Nobody else could understand this song, but these 144,000 do. Go ahead.
These are they which were not defiled with women, for they are virgins. These are they which follow the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. These were redeemed from among men, being the firstfruits unto God and to the Lamb. And in their mouth was found no guile, for they are without fault before the throne of God.
Now, how are you defiled with women if marriage is in the Bible? Got to be something about their purpose where they were told, this is what you're going to do and only this. You're not going to marry. You're not going to have kids. You're going to go in the midst of all of this chaos, and you're going to be my witnesses. Fine. Yes. All men, not married, and they've got a mission. It's plain and simple. They are there for one reason, in essence, and that is to set this example of following Christ, and I think speak of Christ. Notice it says they follow the Lamb wherever he goes. In this vision, again, the tribulation is done, and now they're literally his, almost like personal servants. They follow him wherever he goes. These were redeemed from among men, being firstfruits to God and to the Lamb. Now, we have been redeemed as well, and yet these 144,000, there's something unique and special that God is doing with them, and it seems to continue into the millennial kingdom to some degree. They're right there with Christ on Mount Zion. Are they serving in the temple and stuff? I don't know. Could be. And in their mouth was found no deceit, for they are without fault before the throne of God. So, again, it's kind of interesting. They're real people. They're not angels. They weren't created for this. They are real people that God sealed. Okay, so they could have married and had families, and they did not. To follow God's purpose. Is this where Catholicism gets this idea that priests? I have no idea. It's not biblical. This is something unique, and it's something unique in the tribulation age, and looks like somehow goes into the millennial kingdom. All right, back to 7. Any questions on that part? Stan. Yeah. Yeah. So these were redeemed from among men, being first fruits to God and to the Lamb. If you think of the tribulation, all right, there's some teaching that those who heard the gospel here and rejected it cannot have a chance to be saved here. That's all debatable. But with no debate whatsoever, there are people saved during the tribulation. These 144,000 that are sealed, all right, I believe they're first generation Christians. They are saved in the tribulation. So this sealing, is this why perhaps the sealing, mention of the sealing, is inserted right after the sealed judgment number 6 and before the sealed judgment number 7, which opens up the trumpets? Could be. Maybe this is when this is all happening. They've gone through this, and there are several, 144,000 at least, that have accepted Christ. Again, conjecture, but first fruits is that idea of either first generation Christians and or if we're first fruits, then what are we? We are the fruit of Christ, who is especially the first fruits. For example, mention of the resurrection. Jesus Christ is the first fruit of the resurrection. So there's a few things that could come out of that. Stan? Yep. Okay. So who are these 144,000? They are, in a sense, a group taking out of the group of Jews, and they become, in a sense, like the first fruits of the Jews, in essence. That could be. There's a few ways you can go with it, I'm sure, but as I've walked through it, I think it's interesting that for whatever reason, it looks as though their ministry may change from witnessing to serving Christ, or at the very least, it continues because there's going to be unsaved individuals in the millennial kingdom. Not at first. Okay, it's going to be saved individuals that have survived the tribulation that will then marry and have families, and their kids will be born with a sin nature just like you and me. All right? Okay, back to 7. Wrap it up with this. You notice the last section. After these things I looked, and behold, a great multitude which no one could number, of all nations, tribes, peoples, and tongues, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed with white robes, with palm branches in their hands. Okay, who are these people? We find out as we go a little further. Wiersbe, one of the things he says right here, the multitude of Gentiles. And I'm reading down through there. I don't see a distinction that it's just Gentiles in the verse per se. And when I read a couple other commentaries, it was more the multitude of martyrs. Didn't specifically say Gentiles. But I think I understand where he got that from. When you go back into the Old Testament, there is a passage that actually speaks of a multitude of Gentiles that are going to be saved. Could be this. But I also think of it this way. Often the expression that was used is used of Gentiles. Jew and Gentile, but often of all the tribes and nations. And it's usually when the Jews are in the focus, so to speak, and you're looking out beyond. So it could be. I'm not here to tell you it has to be, because I don't know. But I do know that what you find is a multitude here that is global in essence. It's literally all those nations. There are people involved. What are they doing? Crying out with a loud voice, saying, "Salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb." Now back up. How are they clothed? White robes. What's that imply? Salvation. Their robes have been washed, in essence. Okay, so these are believers. All right. Then he says palm branches. Remember, the picture is in Mount Zion, or actually it's a second vision, I'm sorry. And so this group, they're standing before the throne, which again, quite likely we're looking at either millennial kingdom or perhaps a throne in heaven, because we just saw in chapter 6, verse 5, a vision of the throne room, and they saw these martyrs, all right? Here, he says they have palm branches. Where have we seen palm branches before? Triumphal entry. They were literally waving palm branches. It's a sign of royalty. So here you've got this idea of these martyrs standing before the King, King Jesus. All right, crying out with a loud voice saying, salvation belongs to our God who sits on the throne and to the Lamb. One of the things that's different about the triumphal entry, they weren't talking about salvation. They were talking about simply somebody following in the Messiah coming in the line of David. Okay? All the angels stood around the throne, and the elders and the four living creatures, same ones we've been seeing, and they fell on their faces before the throne and worshiped God, saying, Amen. Blessing and glory and wisdom, thanksgiving and honor and power and might be to our God forever and ever. Amen. If you go back and look at some of the outbursts, that's the wrong word, exclamations of praise. Some of them like this are sevenfold. And it's kind of cool to go back and see just almost like a Paul writing, word after word, just pouring it on. All right? Then one of the elders answered, saying to me, who are these arrayed in white robes, and where did they come from? The elder is not saying, who are these people anyways? All right? He's looking at John, and he's saying, who are these people? All right? You know how we do with our kids, with the grandkids, we'll do this, who's holding you, who's got you, kind of thing, and you want to hear them say your name or whatever, whatever it is, we get a kick out of. Well, here it is. This is this idea of who are these people? And I said to him, sir, you know. John's smart. I don't want to say the wrong answer. I should know, but sir, you know. So he said to me, these are the ones who come out of the great tribulation and washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. These are martyrs. And the number is innumerable. Now go back to the seals that have already been opened, all except the seventh. And we know that part of the seal judgment, one of them was death. All right, could they have been part of that? Yeah. Not that was the whole thing, because you had the death was following wars and famine, so the death could be from a lot of things. However, I believe that what you see is believers who genuinely, they stand for Christ. They're killed, left and right. Some say this is only in the second half because they talk about the expression great tribulation. Could be, however, the term is used in such a way that it can refer to the whole 7 years, because it's something that is unlike anything before. There is sometimes the expression used as the great tribulation in that latter half, and it talks about, again, the trumpets and the woes and all that's going to happen. It's as if the wrath just continues to be poured out and escalates. And so we'll see that, as we go. So you could, does it matter which? Not necessarily, but again, just to tell you that debate is out there. These are the ones who come out of the great tribulation, washed their robes, made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore, they are before the throne of God and serve him day and night in his temple. Again, kind of neat. They have a special, privileged position, and it reflects a bit of what we heard of the 144,000 who I don't think were martyred. They're not included in that martyr picture. All right? In fact, I think it's Wiersbe. He says, maybe the reason this is included in chapter 7, one after the other, is the witnesses are the ones who led these people to the Lord who were then martyred. Could be. It says, therefore they are before the throne of God, serve him day and night in his temple, and he who sits on the throne will dwell among them. They shall neither hunger anymore, nor thirst anymore. By the way, famine, they had experienced that in the tribulation. The sun shall not strike them, nor any heat, cosmic disturbances. That was part of the seals. Actually, there's going to be more of that coming. For the Lamb who is in the midst of the throne will shepherd them and lead them to living fountains of waters, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. Pretty amazing. They are going to stand for Christ at a time that is worse even than when Christians were being thrown to the lions in Rome. It's just mind-boggling. One of the things that, if you've ever read Fox's Book of Martyrs, you read about those individuals who stood firm. But you also read about some who didn't. They caved, they gave in. Some who turned in other people. But they stood firm and they gave their life. And sometimes that was drowning, sometimes it was burning at the stake, sometimes it was beheading, sometimes it was all kinds of things. Drawn and quartered. It was horrible. All to try to make a picture, an impact on everybody else. Don't follow Christ. Antichrist is going to try, and all he's doing is hastening their entrance into heaven, where they're going to be rewarded, and they're going to serve their God. Isn't it just amazing how God brings all this together? So that's chapter 7 then. You've got the witnesses, you've got the martyrs, and it's a vision that seems to be looking more towards the end of the tribulation, even partly into the kingdom. All right. Any other questions on that? We got to wrap it up. Stan. Yeah, absolutely. When you, again, we're going to get to this, but when you get to what somebody called I've lost the word. The dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. Thank you. When they talk about this unholy trinity, and you begin to see all that they're doing, it is so directly it is just like what we read about Lucifer. Why was he cast out of heaven? He wanted to be like God. Isn't it funny? That's towards the beginning of our history, and this will be towards the end of world history. Sorry. Revelation 8, we get back into the seventh seal, we get into the trumpets, and again, you'll kind of see the escalation we've been talking about. Again, what do we learn out of all this? One, be careful how you interpret. When you go into the Word, look at it normally, literally, unless there's something in the context that tells you it should be something different. Okay? When you begin to speculate about things that aren't there, acknowledge that it's speculation. And acknowledge that maybe the idea came from somebody else, or maybe it came from this passage over here. But don't say, well, this is what it's got to be. If you don't know, that's not wise use of the Word of God. All right? I'm not saying that you never say, one of the characteristics of Christ on earth, of Jesus, is he went into the synagogue and he taught with authority. He didn't say, well, this rabbi said this, and this rabbi said that, and this. No, he said, this is what the Word of God. We have a responsibility to come to convictions for our own. All right? But it needs to come from the Word, not just our own opinion. All right. Guess I better let you go. Father, thank you for good interaction. Thank you for, again, that you are holy, that you are just, but that you are also gracious and merciful. Lord, as we look at this and we look at the wrath that is being poured out, that you have prophesied throughout the Old Testament even, we understand, Father, that all of this must happen, and it will happen under your control. And Father, I personally thank you that as part of the church, I won't be here for this. I praise you for that. But Lord, I also praise you that it isn't just a dumping out of anger like a human might do, but instead it is wrapped up in who you are, which certainly involves the love and the mercy and the grace as well. Thank you again, Father, for each who's come out today and stayed. And I just pray, Lord, that you will bless them for their efforts as well. In Jesus' name, amen.